Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our first episode of our live video podcast, Exploring Economic Development with MEDC. I'm Meredith Harris, the Executive Director of Marlborough Economic Development Corporation, and I am joined today by my co-host and moderator, Jill Morin.
Hi. Oh,
Go right ahead,
I'm
Jill.
going to go right ahead. I like to jump in. So happy to have you all with us today. If you're joining us live, feel free to make a comment. Let us know you're here. Let us know where you're watching from or maybe any questions that you might have. And if you're watching this on the replay, you can also comment. We're going to be checking those to see, what some good topics might be for the future. And we'd love to know a little bit more about you and kind of why you're joining us and what really interests you about economic development or maybe the growth of Marlborough, Massachusetts.
So we're really excited. We're going to start talking about topics that we hear often from people as we travel around promoting Marlborough to all the folks that we want to bring in. But the question that we hear most often is, what is MEDC? What do you do? Why do you exist? We've actually had a couple of new employees that started over the last year that both were from Marlborough residents that didn't necessarily understand exactly why the MEDC exists and what is it that we do. So we thought it was important to come to you guys in a live video format so you can engage with us, ask questions. We're hoping that a lot of different types of folks are going to join us in this, and really anything that you want to ask us, we're here to discuss, and I want to kind of keep this an informal discussion. So please ask your questions in the comments below, and we'll get started. Jill?
Yeah, so like you said, I joined the team this summer in July, and I knew a little bit about MEDC basically through seeing you at events facilitated by Marlborough Public Schools.
Right.
So I saw you on a panel discussion once during STEM Week
Right.
at the Whitcomb School.
Yep.
I particularly remember, and so I feel like I've learned a lot through the last 6-7 months working with MEDC. But can you just tell us a little bit? An overall, who is MEDC? And what's the role that we play here in the city?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and I think a lot of people share your thoughts and comments as well. So MEDC is the economic development arm for the city of Marlborough. We are considered the sales and promotional arm for the city, really working to foster economic development, job growth, company expansion, neighborhood revitalization, and we also serve as the de facto planning department for the city. So what does that mean? It's really our job to make sure that we're out, not only on a state, and local level, but also on a national level, promoting Marlborough and all the wonderful things that we have here to offer in our city. And so when we go out to some of the different, we call them site selector events, and we meet with commercial brokers across the country to really talk about Marlborough and why companies throughout, Massachusetts and beyond should want to locate here. And the importance of bringing a company to your community, there's many different reasons why you'd want to do that. But really, it all comes back to growing the pie. The Arthur Bergeron, our original chair of our board, often talked about growing the pie. And what was the importance of growing the pie?
All right, so I got to jump in here. I've never heard growing the pie before. I've heard eating the pie.
Love eating pie.
What's your favorite pie, Meredith?
Apple pie.
Apple pie.
Absolutely.
Oh, strawberry rhubarb. Hands down. But not if it's too sweet.
That's right.
Anyways, so growing the pie.
Yes.
Tell us.
What does that mean?
What is growing the pie?
What is the growing pie?
Need to know.
Right. So the way you want to think about it, the city, at the end of the day, the city has a amount of money that they need to collect in order to operate. And so every individual, every resident, every homeowner is going to pay into that. We call it the pie. But also every business that you have in your community is also going to pay into that pie. So the city's budget every year continues to increase for different reasons. And if you have more people that are paying into the pie, you grow the pie, and therefore everybody is able to get a little bit bigger of a slice. So bringing in companies who are actually taxed at a higher rate. Our commercial tax rate is a little bit higher than our residential rate. They help offset some of the burden for our residents.
Okay.
And so at the end of the day, really the MEDC mission is to make sure that we're stabilizing the residential tax base. And so that translates to every resident in Marlborough, and we'll get into this in another episode because we could talk about that for a long time, but really trying to make sure that when our homeowners receive their tax bill, that they're able to really predict that it's at a stable rate and it's not jumping or fluctuating from year to year.
Okay. So I've seen a lot of people get concerned about, so we bring in more people, we bring in more businesses. Is that going to cost the city of Marlborough more money? And so, more businesses, more growth it's still going to cost us more even if we're dividing it. How can you kind of speak to that?
Well, so if you have more people, more companies, more folks that are paying into it,
Yeah.
it's going to, it stabilizes. And also with those, a company coming in, there's so many other benefits to having a company in your community, right? So if a company comes in and they're bringing with them 100 jobs, those are 100 jobs that are available to Marlborough residents.
Right.
And then often folks talk about traffic and, how's that going to affect, things like that. Well, if people from Marlborough are working in the companies, that's a win-win for everybody. The traffic won't increase too much. But also, if you think about it, people coming into your community is a really good thing. And we'll talk about this again in another episode, but, the big fish feed the smaller fish. And what that means is, if there's somebody down at Rock's Barbershop on downtown Main Street or one of the other, nail salons, places like that, people that are coming into our community every day to work are now frequenting some of these businesses and helping support our local economy.
Right. And that makes me think about, it's kind of a different time that we're in right now, but it makes me think of the New England Sports Center.
Right.
And how that has really helped local restaurants,
right.
And the hotel industry, of course.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, one of our biggest, drivers in our economy in Marlborough is sports tourism, in the hospitality industry, and people that are coming in to work every day in some of these bigger companies, they're eating at our restaurants, but then they're also staying at our hotels. If somebody that works at GE Healthcare or Cytiva or Quest, one of the big fish that's in our community, if they have people that are flying in for a meeting or some sort of a board meeting, they're going to stay at our local hotels. They're going to eat at our restaurants. They're going to shop in our local places.
They're going to go get their nails done.
They are going to get their nails done.
Need to go back.
Absolutely.
We need to go see either Shea Bella or TTC.
Absolutely. Yes, and so it's a great way for us to help promote some of our local folks, our small business, with the bigger business that's coming in.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, well, we've got a question here.
Great.
The question is, so what you're saying is that more commercial business helps keep the residential tax rate lower?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So it's not that it necessarily keeps it lower, but it stabilizes the tax rate. And so, Marlborough, we've been able to keep the tax rate lower than our surrounding communities in the past couple of years. You are going to see some fluctuation in the tax rate from year to year. And it doesn't necessarily mean that your tax bill is going to go down. Home values go up, the tax rate comes down, so there is some fluctuation in some of those different things, but having more commercial business in your community certainly helps to stabilize your tax rate and keep things, predictable.
Mm-hmm. A follow-up question to that is, along with the residential tax rate, as well as give the smaller businesses more traffic.
If by traffic you mean more people coming in to frequent their services, absolutely, without a doubt. We typically say that there's about 25,000 people that come into the city every day to work, 25,000 people that leave the city every day to work. That, of course, is pre-pandemic. So we'll have to look at those numbers again when COVID is kind of in the background. But certainly those people coming in during the week to work, are certainly trafficking our businesses or frequenting our shops.
Awesome. So speaking of, finances and taxes, and can you tell us, maybe tell us a little bit about where MEDC came from, when you guys opened up shop, how, maybe also when did you jump on board, and
Sure.
maybe how is this whole operation funded, and why should it be?
That's important for folks to understand too. So MEDC, I always say it goes back to 2000. I think it was 2008, 2007 timeframe. Mayor Hogan at the time came up with an idea, to try to, how do we make sure that the businesses in town, we're continuing to bring them in. Unfortunately, Fidelity around the same time had left the city, took with them 5,000 employees, what seemed to be overnight. I wasn't here at the time, but we hear that, it was one of those things where the administration in town kind of sat back and said, how do we make sure that never happens again? If a company like Fidelity, is going to leave the city and take with them 5,000 employees, how do we make sure that we either knew about it before it happened and had a chance to, try to step in and save them from leaving? And how do we then make sure that we're preparing to bring additional folks in if a company does decide to leave for one reason or another? So the idea of the MEDC was founded right around 2010. Marlborough Economic Development
2006, I hear.
No, so
No?
yes, I'm sorry. Yes. Thank you, Jill. Thank you. Yeah, so it was 2006 and it was Marlborough 2010. That's where I got the 2010. So we were working towards 2010.
Yeah.
And so at the time it was Mayor Hogan, Nancy Stevens. Then, she was the mayor after that. She was able to kind of bring the idea to fruition. There was Council President Vigent at the time, who then ended up being the mayor that we work with now. But all these wonderful folks came together to bring this idea of an economic development team to the city of Marlborough. So originally we were funded through membership-based, and then eventually after 2010, after we worked towards that goal of 2010, we ended up moving to a different funding structure. And so the local option hotel tax was implemented by the voters in Marlborough, but the catch was that all the money that was collected through the local options hotel tax had to go towards economic development. And kind of the cool thing about that, if you think about it, the tax that's collected through the hotels is really from people that are visiting our community. So really the taxpayers of Marlborough are not necessarily paying into economic development, but people that come to our community are the ones that are funding that.
Okay, so I remember it was like my first week here, and you explained that to me, and I shouldn't be. I mean, I'm born and raised in Marlborough,
Right.
grew up on Orchard Street, right near Ward Park. But I was really like dumbfounded by that. Like I was really shocked by that. And I think it's wonderful. I mean, if we're talking about growing economics, if we're talking about growing our city and bringing in different companies, even as a taxpayer here in Marlborough, it's like, well, where's my money? Why am I spending my tax money to have other people move closer to my house, or to have worse traffic or whatever? But to know that that's being funded by people
Outside.
that are
Yeah.
it's really interesting.
Well, and also the other piece that I think people don't realize, around the same time was the meals tax. And so the meals tax was implemented again by the voters in Marlborough, but all of that money is slated to go towards parks and recreation. So all the upgrades that you're seeing across the city for our fields and things like that is coming directly from the meals tax, which in most cases you don't even notice it.
Right. It's like a fine little item
Right.
on your receipt that you don't even, I mean, it's puny for an individual.
Right.
But when you look at the improvements
When
that
it
are
comes
made
together.
in
Yes.
our Parks and Rec, it's through that.
And I think kind of another neat thing about the way that it's funded, in a lot of cases in government, in city, local governments, people say, well, again, to your point, where is my money going?
Right.
You know where this money is going,
Yeah.
and it cannot go towards anything else. So it's a set aside. It doesn't go into that general fund that can be used for XYZ, and you never know exactly where it goes. You know where this money is going, which is kind of neat.
That's awesome. We've got another question.
Great.
From Brianna.
Hi, Brianna.
It says, how does your group recruit and incentivize companies to come to Marlborough? And when they decide they want to build or renovate within the city, how do you help them navigate that process?
Well,
is that something that we do?
Absolutely. That is what we do.
Tell us about it.
I will tell you about it. Thanks for the question, Brianna. I appreciate you joining us this morning. So the way that we incentivize company, there's a lot of different tools that we have. We call it our Economic Development Toolbox, which we launched in 2015. Depends on the size of the company. If a company is a large company that's coming in and they're going to be making, millions of dollars in improvements and bringing with them hundreds of jobs, we're able to kind of point them towards the EDIP program, which is run by the state, but it does require the local municipality to enter into an agreement with a company based on the things that they're doing. What's the investment that they're making? How many jobs are they bringing in? And what's the improved value? That's kind of the piece. And again, I don't want to get too much into TIFs right now, but it is a program called the Tax Incentive Financing through the state MOBD. However, the piece about that people need to understand is a company that's coming in that's bigger needs to be making a value change, an assessment change on the tax rolls. If they're able to meet that threshold, which is a difficult thing to do, they're eligible for that program. They then are able to get a tax savings on the improved value in the building. So that's one tool that we have in the toolbox. If it's a smaller company or a mid-sized company, we also have programs through the MEDC that they're eligible for. We have one that's called the Small Business Incentive Program that's structured similar to the TIF program at the state level, but that's more for a company that's taking 25 to 50,000 square feet. They're not necessarily making that assessment change, so they wouldn't be eligible for the state program, but they're bringing jobs. They're filling space in our community. They're bringing people in every day. So we see that as a value, and we're able to offer incentives through our toolbox. If they're a much smaller company, if it's your local donut shop or a candle maker or something like that, we have programs available for them as well. If they're coming to our downtown, we have specific programs. If they're an existing business in Marlborough and they're trying to make improvements to their facade or something like that, that's also something that we have available. I think there was a follow-up question that Brianna had. There was two in there.
Let me bring that back up.
Sure.
And just to, for all of you that have just jumped on in the last 10, 15 minutes, welcome. We're happy to have you
Thank
here.
you.
This is a live video, so you can feel free in Facebook or YouTube to,
Ask away.
ask away. What comments, what questions do you have? So that question again was...
How do you help them navigate the process?
Yeah.
So I think that's the beauty of MEDC. And not every community has an MEDC or an economic development arm that is funded or structured the way that Marlborough does. If you are a business owner, whether you are at one of the biggest companies in Marlborough or across the state, or you're somewhere in the country that's looking to come to Marlborough, you can call us and we will help you. If you are a teeny tiny little startup or you're an entrepreneur, you can call us and we will help you. We want every type of business that's looking to locate in our city to know that this is the one-stop shop to find out everything that you need to know about bringing your company, building your company, or expanding your company in our community.
So that kind of reminds me of, remember a few weeks ago, you and I were here in the office, and we had two gentlemen that showed up, and they had heard about us, I think,
Right.
through one of our restaurants. Brazilian Portuguese speakers. I was so excited. I got to use my Portuguese skills. But they came in, and they were just wanting to get started with a painting company. So at that point, what besides MEDC, because at that point when they're just like, they haven't gone through any licensing yet, or actually they had a license, but they weren't licensed in the city of Marlborough and all of that. What are some of the resources outside of MEDC that we kind of can
help
get
them.
them started?
Right.
And then when is a good time for them to kind of circle back to us for us to support them even more?
Yeah, so a company that's as small as the gentleman that came in a couple weeks ago, we would point them to the state has wonderful resources about how do you start a business, how do you file different things with the state, the city, all your different, administrative things that you need to do before you can really get going. But we also have wonderful resources in our community. There's the Chamber of Commerce, which is a great place to go to. Marlborough Regional Chamber of Commerce with Rob and his team. They're able to kind of help you get started. There's also folks at Clark University that can help with starting a business plan. Often we have folks that are entrepreneurs and they have a dream and they want to get started, but there's so many things that you need to do before you can really hit the ground running. And so we're able to point people in a direction of where you should go, how do you get started, and then once you're kind of up and running, come back to us. And the important piece about some of those incentives, we want to make sure that we get to folks before they sign a lease or before they get too far down the line, so that we can really help them, get ingrained in the community and figure out what they need to do.
And one of the things I've noticed, I'm not involved in through my role here, but I've noticed that because of your connections with the other city departments, you kind of know, oh, this building might open up soon.
Right.
So like, let's say I wanted to open up what did you say? A candle shop.
Sure.
Suddenly I'm really into my like Etsy and I'm getting all crafty and all that. And I want to open up a candle shop and I see there's a building down there and I already signed a lease. But then you might know, if I come here and say, hey, this is what I'm interested in doing, you might say, you know what? Yes, but there might be a place that's opening up soon that might be a better fit for you where you can get more traffic. Yeah,
and I think that's where building the relationships comes into play. So we try to really make sure that we're building relationships, maintaining relationships with folks within the city, anybody that owns buildings, the companies, really just trying to keep a handle on what is happening, what's going on, because there's nothing better than your boots on the ground knowledge about this company might be moving here or this space might be open, to really make meaningful connections for folks when they come into our community.
Yeah, awesome. We've got a question.
Great.
What is the RLF program?
The RLF program is our
roll on the floor. Really lazy family program.
This is our revolving loan fund program.
What?
Yes.
Tell me about it.
So we have a revolving loan fund program, which was started back in 2015. That's when we launched the Toolbox, which is all those different incentives that we talked about.
Ooh.
So the revolving loan fund is part of the Toolbox.
And the Toolbox, little plug here, we will be doing an in-depth video talking all about it with our wonderful
Linda Martins, yes.
Linda Martins.
So Linda Martins, our director of operations, she manages these programs. She manages the revolving loan fund as well. This is a great tool for entrepreneurs, small business, folks that are trying to get started, but maybe don't qualify for 100% of the loan that they need at one of the smaller banks. Maybe they qualify for 80% of that loan, and they really need that 20% gap financing, we call it, to get them to where they need to be. The revolving loan fund is a tool that you can use to kind of fill that gap. So it's community funds that were put together. There are 4 local banks that have joined with MEDC to put this program together. We have Avidia Bank, we have Main Street Bank, DCU, and St. Mary's. And the city, St. Mary's, yeah.
That was my first bank account.
No kidding.
Shout out to St. Mary's.
Shout out to all of them.
Of course.
To all of them. Yes. And so the city council also has put money towards this program. And what happens is if an entrepreneur or a small business owner, the first example we had was it was a gentleman from Marlborough who wanted to start his own electrician business. And so he came to us. What he really needed was a bucket truck, and he needed to secure the funds to get the bucket truck. He only qualified for 80% of the loan at one of the local banks. The revolving loan fund, everybody has come together. They each have a 20% stake in the fund. Yeah. He applied for the loan to cover that final 20%. And the bankers, there's a committee that is one banker from each of the different banks that sits on the committee with an MEDC rep to really look at the loan applications and make sure that everything checks out. And we were able to help, a young, budding entrepreneur get his business up and running through the revolving loan fund program. Since then, we've had, I think it is 4 additional loans. It's really helped some of our great companies in town get started. Big Apple Deli was one. When they moved from one space to another, we were able to help them out. Kitty Time Daycare is another one. So really some great businesses in town that have been able to benefit from that program specifically.
Awesome. All right. Brianna says she has one more for us.
I would love to hear it.
She can keep them coming, though.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're here. All right, one more for you. Does the MEDC have a pre-approved list of contractors, consultants that are provided to companies they're looking to renovate or build?
We don't necessarily have a pre-approved list, but we certainly, when companies are coming in, especially if they're from out of state or, they're not local to the area, they absolutely ask us for recommendations about who has done the most work in town, who is somebody that understands the local municipality and our process. So certainly want to build relationships with contractors and folks like that that are looking to do business in our community so that we are able to provide the folks that are coming in, kind of those big fish, again, with some of the local small folks that they're able to work with. So absolutely, Brianna would love to connect with you and make sure that, the company that you're working with, is available to the folks that we're bringing in.
She sent us a smiley face.
Thanks, Brianna. Smile right back at you.
That's awesome. So what are some of the other things that we wanted to kind of discuss on this first episode number 1?
Yeah, so I think another thing that people often wonder is, who do we work with? What are the constituencies that we tend to spend the most time with? And one thing that we've really been trying to do as of lately is to build the school to business partnerships. And I know we'll get more into all these topics, at later times, but just to give to scratch the surface. When you bring in a company, that's great. Attraction is wonderful. We want to continue to attract companies to our community. But it's just as important to make sure that we're retaining the companies in our community. If a company comes in and they only stay for a couple years and then they leave, we're then, trying to fill that space again. So if we can keep them there, that's wonderful. When you talk to the companies, the mayor and I, we work very closely with Mayor Vigent in his office and the city council. One of the programs that we have is called a business outreach. And so the mayor and I try to visit at least 1 or 2 companies a month to just get feedback. What's going well in the city? Are you growing? Can we help you grow? Do you need a different space? Are there things that we know about that we can help facilitate? When we first started the meetings, it was before my time, so the mayor, has been doing this for many, many years now. One of the biggest things that we heard from the companies, and it has been across the board, is if I can keep my employees happy, I'm staying. I'm not going anywhere. Yeah. So if they can continue to, find employees, keep them happy and keep them, employed in their company, that's great. It's expensive to move a company, so if you don't have to do that, they don't want to do that. Yeah. So we take a lot of that feedback and try to make sure that we're helping build the pipeline. and make sure that the attractions, things such as the Apex Center or, new restaurants that you see come in, the Fix, things like that. Those are all things that companies need to help with their employee retention, and to make sure that when the big CEOs are coming in, they have a place to stay at, they have a nice hotel, and they have a place to go out to eat. Those are all things that help a company stay in your community. So I'm going a little off track, but the school to business is really important because that pipeline, that workforce, we really need to workforce development and make sure that we are providing employees for these companies that are coming in. So we've been doing a lot of work, Jill, with your help, to make sure that the students of our community are aware of the companies that are here, that we're training them appropriately so that when they come out of school, they have wonderful jobs right in their backyard. And they're not afraid to apply for those jobs. And those are things that they're able to have access to.
So just to clarify, so Meredith mentioned my help from the school system. So in addition to working here as the marketing director at MEDC, I also work as a communications coordinator at Marlborough Public Schools. And so I graduated from MHS. I won't tell you when because the yearbooks are now virtual. If you haven't checked it out, it's
really cool.
Yeah, I got that link at like 8 p.m. when I'm already in bed because I'm old, and I was up to like 11.
Just creeping on everybody, right?
I couldn't help it. Well, my in-laws graduated. Anyways, I'm off track. But so part of my job as communications coordinator for Marlborough Public Schools is, certainly bringing feel-good stories and sharing pictures and videos of all the things that are going on in the school. But it's been great to kind of work here and there because I feel like I have a better understanding of what's going on in Marlborough, and it only ever makes me feel like more proud to be born here. Marlborough really is a great place to what's the phrase?
To live, work, and play.
Live, work, and play.
Live, work, and play.
Come on, guys.
Well, so speaking of live, work, and play, the other big piece I can't forget to talk about Sam Sherman, and we now have.
Wait, she commented.
She did.
She said, well, maybe she doesn't. Maybe she wants to stay a little incognito. Sorry, Sam, I'm blowing you up. Great info. Love this. So she's joining us on Facebook today. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Well, so Sam currently manages our hospitality and sports tourism program. We're actually bringing in a new employee as Sam is going to be going out. She's an entrepreneur herself to start her own adventure. But Lindsay Jowrick, who is a Marlborough resident, will be taking over in that role. But it's really important for us to also hit on the fact that we tried to do a lot for our hospitality industry, mainly because that is a huge part of Marlborough's economy. We want to make sure that we're keeping the hotels. We always joke and say heads in beds. We want to make sure that there's heads in the beds and that there's folks that are going to our restaurants and eating out and doing things like that. So another big thing that we do at MEDC is kind of this Dine Local campaign to make sure that people are dining local, staying in our hotels, and really trying to bolster that hospitality industry within the community.
So we just got a comment right now from Steve Eulis. Go, Samantha.
Thanks, Steve. So Steve has been, mentoring Sam and helping Sam in her adventure. So Sam's going to be starting a food truck soon, and hopefully she'll bring the food truck to Marlborough. Because
why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't she?
Sam, I will. I've been, watching my weight, but I will eat those donuts. I will try anything you want to sell.
To do that.
Yeah.
So I just have to say, Steve Eulis jumping in, what a great testament to that workforce development, that pipeline building. Here's, one of our beloved restaurant owners in Marlborough, couldn't be more successful and willing to come and share some of his time with Sam, budding entrepreneur. And we were able to help make that connection through one of our other series, Passing the Torch. So we're hoping to do more of that in the future. But really just goes to show the Marlborough community and the way that you're treated once you come here. Lots of people that are willing to help, that want to get involved and really see people succeed.
Yeah, that's awesome. Sam says, I'll be here.
Coming to the streets near you. That's
Coming
great.
to the borough. Do it, Sam.
Proud of you, Sam. Very proud of you.
We've got Lindsay jumped in and said, this is so helpful. Thank you. Glad to be learning about the MEDC and how it benefits this great city.
We're so excited to have Lindsay, come on board, and we have a team right now. It's myself. We have Linda, who manages all of our revolving loan fund, economic development toolbox programs, and really just keeps us all on track and the wheels rolling here at the MEDC. We also have, I've already talked about Sam and Lindsay, and then there's myself and also Jill. So Jill's doing all of our marketing, our communications. And if you've been following us for a while, you might have noticed kind of a shift in the way that we've been doing things in July of this year. As the pandemic hit, we kind of sat back and said, how do we react to this, and how do we make sure that we still are bringing content that's of value? And so Jill, came to us with her video specialty, and we've been able to produce really great content through the pandemic, which has been really great.
Thanks. No, it's been awesome being here, and it's been a perfect fit for sure.
It's wonderful.
So I kind of half brought this up the other day to you because I thought it might be good for this type of a format. So I remember I grew up on Orchard Street, like I said, and the best part about living on that street was that I could go out my front door and there was a playground and the football field and the basketball courts. And I remember it was like I was away at college like 10 years ago when they had made a proposal to build a senior center. And in my mind, I was like, I was so mad. Like my instant reaction was like, but that's my playground. I had
not my backyard.
Not in my backyard. You better watch it. But I was nervous about that because I didn't know what it was going to look like, and I didn't do my research to find out where was it going to be. It was after the park, right over there.
Right.
And I mean, it ended up being beautiful.
Right.
I mean, and then they've got what's that sport? It's not paddleball. What is it? It's
pickleball.
Pickleball. There you go.
Yeah.
So they added that, and honestly, like the basketball courts now, and the pool,
the skate park, and
everything is just so amazing. I would be happy to live on Orchard Street again. But my reaction, and I know we kind of talked about that at the very beginning, but just in case people are jumping in now, economic development can seem threatening for residents, especially if you kind of grew up and you had things a certain way, and it's nostalgic and everything like that. So can you just to kind of recap a little bit, why is economic development good? In this example, it was very clear. They added to the park. They're meeting new needs. They beautified what was already there. Now they've had great events there. Was the Relay for Life is held there. It's amazing.
Remember, were you around Fox 25 came? I think it was Boston 25. They did the zip trip at Ward Park. That was awesome too. It was a couple years ago. That was really cool.
Yeah.
Beautiful part of the city. But a lot of those increased services, the improvements that you're seeing, all of those things are happening without a lot of impact to the taxpayer. So I think, you're able to see upgrades and improvements and new splash pads and the senior center, not for nothing, but in Marlborough, we continue to have free trash pickup. That's not something that everybody has in every community. And our taxes have stayed stable. And we're able to add all of those things and have different types of improvements without, again, a lot of impact on your wallet. So the reason we're able to do that is economic development. The companies that are coming in that are, again, helping expand the pie, the whole pie, to make a lot of those improvements and those added services possible without impacting your wallet.
So to that point, let's say, though, that this year my taxes went up.
Yes.
They stay the same, but you're saying that they stay the same, but they've gone up.
Sure.
Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so the tax rate actually came down.
Okay.
This year, the tax rate came down for both commercial and also residential. But some of the tax bills may have increased, a couple $100s. That's because home values are going up.
Yeah.
So that's not a bad thing. That's not necessarily a bad thing. That means that when you go to sell your home at some point, it is a good thing for you.
Yeah.
But again, that's what it's all about, stabilizing so that it's predictable. Your tax bill may be going up $100 year over year is pretty predictable. You can plan on that, and it's not that much. In some other communities, that's not the case. So we're able to stabilize and keep it pretty level for folks that they can plan year to year.
Awesome. We've got a question from Ryan. Ryan asks us, how do you think Marlborough's business community has grown over the years? And before you answer that,
sure.
Looks like Steve's got to head out to work. Great job, MEDC. See y'all soon.
Thanks for joining us, Steve.
Yeah, so if you haven't gone to
Fireflies,
there we go. Best barbecue in town.
Amazing.
Check it out. Actually, I was just talking to someone who had their 5-year school reunion at Fireflies.
No kidding.
They said it was awesome.
That's great.
All right, going back to this question, how do you think Marlborough's business community has grown over the years? And then maybe after that we can talk about how, before we wrap it up, over this past year, being so different. But over the past, since you came on board, how has the business community grown?
Well, I mean, not to be silly, but we started out as a shoe manufacturing community, right? So I think Marlborough's business community has certainly, changed over the years. And in the past, 5, 7, 10 years, we've really shifted our focus on bringing in life science companies and advanced manufacturing. And, the beauty of kind of those lab users and things like that. And again, I don't want to get too far into these topics, but when you're talking about new growth and you're talking about growing that pie and the money that is collected, the revenues that are collected at the city, lab space is really, really profitable for the community because they come in and they're constantly changing the technology and they're bringing in new things. And so the city's new growth continues to go up every year because of those companies that are coming in. The manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, it's a little different. In Massachusetts, as a manufacturer, you're not actually taxed on personal property, but the labs are. So we try to make sure that we have a good, diversity of industries that are in the community. We also have a lot of great small, and local folks that are here, but really trying to make sure that the life sciences are our target. That's who we really want to bring in. It's kind of our bread and butter. Yeah. I mean, we
and it's not like, if they're bringing so much equipment to come to a new place, and like you said, to move a facility,
right?
Especially
it's expensive
in that field, right? So once they're here,
as long as they feel like they, the overall picture works for them, they're going to stay. And that's a benefit to the community. And again, I'm scratching the surface a little bit, but kind of that new growth, that personal property, that people are paying on in those labs. I mean, that's real money that's going into that pie. Again, it always comes back to growing the pie. And year after year, we continue to see benefits from companies and businesses like that are coming into the community. And so what was the other question you had?
Well,
the last year.
Yeah, in the past year, actually, we'll finish that.
Come back, okay.
I've got a question on deck for you. So that's over, the growth of Marlborough with businesses. What about this past year? How can you tell us a little bit about what you've observed in economic development as the city of Marlborough? How are we doing? How are businesses doing
through all this craziness?
Yeah, and I don't want to hang out on this topic too long because I think we're all
burnt out,
ready to move on.
But we can't, right? Yeah. So I think the good thing, we have positioned ourselves to be able to kind of weather the storm. We have a great business base that's here in Marlborough. Again, a lot of life science companies, a lot of those manufacturing folks that are actually manufacturing things for the life science companies. So as much as the pandemic has brought difficulty and challenges for businesses across the world, we've actually been okay in that sector. The life science companies are not slowing down. No. It's actually, getting busier, and they're really trying to react to the pandemic and make sure that they're doing everything they need. Testing, Quest Diagnostics is in our community doing, the testing for everybody. So those companies are not slowing down. Where we have seen, a little bit of a shift is the purely office folks. So with the work from home and people really kind of shifting towards that, time will tell. What does post-pandemic look like, and are there going to be people coming back? So you might see some of the larger office tenants downsize. I don't think you'll see people. I'd be surprised if you see companies not have a physical presence at all. Right. But it might be smaller than it was before.
Sure.
But again, going back to that diversity of industry and making sure that you have enough, it's spread out enough that you can kind of come back from it. I think we've positioned ourselves very well over the last 5 to 10 years.
Awesome. All right, I've got a couple more questions before we kind of wrap
it up.
We've
our
been
first
live streaming.
episode.
I know. Yeah. We've been live for about 40 minutes here, and
it's great.
It's been awesome. All right, so Charlie asked us the question. I think this is a great, valid question. What types of resources can the MEDC offer to current residents who aren't necessarily interested in operating a business here?
Yeah, so we can definitely, offer, facilitate conversations. We can help you figure out where you want to go on the weekends. Are there things that, specials that might be going on, things you want to do? Happy to point you in all those directions. We're currently writing a Dine Local campaign. So we're offering gift cards and T-shirts and different prizes to our residents and actually people outside of Marlborough that want to dine at our local businesses. Yeah. Always happy to have a conversation and point people to wherever it is that they're looking to go. But Charlie would love to chat with you and see
Yeah.
how we can connect and what we can do to help you.
Didn't we just get a Dine Local card mailed in from Boston?
From
the other day?
Boston, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, we try to just be, a hub of information, and we're really trying to make sure that we're, again, Charlie, maybe you have, kids that are in the school system, or somebody who might be in the school system, we'd be able to help maybe, get those folks to one of the companies that are in town. Or if you're looking for a job, or somebody that's looking for a job, we can help facilitate those conversations as well.
Right.
We host a job fair, typically biannually. I think we're going to annually now with the pandemic. That'll come back, later on, but I'm happy to help local residents find jobs. You might not want to start a business, but you might want to work at one of our businesses, so we can help with that as well.
Awesome. Yeah, we were just in a meeting the other day with our schools again, talking about internship
Right.
opportunities. And not only does that, support our soon-to-be graduates, but also it connects with their families,
Right.
and it can provide a lot of opportunities for them. Awesome. Charlie, happy to have you here.
Thanks for joining us, Charlie.
And Lola asked us the question, how has MEDC helped small businesses during COVID with all the restrictions?
There's been a lot, hasn't there, Lola? Yeah. And I think the challenging part was that it was so, and it still continues to evolve, daily, weekly, monthly. So that's definitely been a challenge for some of our small business folks in town. But what we've tried to do is pivot that toolbox that I keep talking about. We looked in, I think it was July that we started to really take a deep look at how can we repurpose maybe some of the funds that were available through the toolbox for new companies coming in, to really try to shift and pivot and help the companies that are here. So what we did over the summer was we had a program. It was the COVID-19 Small Business Relief Program, and really tried to help any of our small businesses that were reopening under the state's new guidelines. So there was a lot of different folks, Wayside Country Store, a lot of our restaurants, Wellies, a lot of the folks that you see all the time, but we helped with some outdoor dining. We helped purchase some personal protective equipment, back in that time over the summer when people were just starting to reopen and things were just starting to get back to the new normal. People were having a hard time finding masks and hand sanitizer,
Yeah.
and couldn't find those things. And so we were, really trying to make sure that people that wanted to reopen had the means to do so, and put themselves in a position to be able to be successful, and to react to the new restrictions that were being put in place.
Awesome. So I've got to pull this out, Meredith. Tell me about
Hand sanitizer. So it's actually kind of funny. We
Yeah.
bought the hand sanitizer, their hand sanitizing pens. We purchased those as just a marketing tool before the pandemic. So I don't know what that says about us at MEDC. Maybe we're able to tell the future. I don't know. So we have plenty. So if any business owners are listening, or residents, or anybody that needs masks or hand sanitizer, we are happy to help. We've got plenty.
And we still have some masks. We
Absolutely.
still have some resources if you're in need of that. We've even had some residents call up and say, "Hey, I
Our
saw
Visit
those
Marlborough masks."
Visit Marlborough
Yeah.
masks,
Yeah.
and we've been able to support them.
For sure.
Awesome. Charlie, by the way, says thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Meredith. So we're coming up on 45 minutes. So any last things you want to mention? Any look into maybe what our next episode might be like? And by the way, our next episode will be in 2 weeks. So we'll be coming to you live the first and the third Wednesday of every month.
Every month.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you. Appreciate everybody joining us today, and thanks to my team here at MEDC for putting this together. I think, again, it's a wonderful way for us to be able to, engage with all of you at a time where it's difficult to engage. So if anybody has additional questions, please drop them below.
Yes.
We would be thrilled to answer them, before or after the podcast. The live video podcast that we're doing.
I keep having to correct her on this, guys. She's like, "Oh, we're going to do a podcast."
It's live.
It's a live video
podcast.
Okay, yes.
But we're thrilled to have you all here, and if there are topics or things that you would like to see us tackle in this live video podcast, please let us know. We're really excited to be doing this, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, Naomi Soriano says that's awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for joining.
All right. Well, we'll see you in a couple of weeks, and again, like Meredith said, feel free to
let us know.
Yeah, if you've got any questions, or if you say, hey, it'd be really great to hear more about this, or maybe eventually we'd love to have some guests come in and talk about what
Absolutely.
they specialize in and everything. So just let us know.
Have a wonderful day.
Awesome.
Thanks, everybody.